Hey, I'm Owen,
Hi, I'm Susanna.
and welcome back. This is page 2 of our 3D modeling experiment.
Mm-hmm.
The first full page that we've used the modeling feature and clip.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to think that it's already into the page 2 on that. 'Cause
Yeah.
a lot of this was base sketched even before our last conversation.
That's true, yeah.
So you can see the base sketch right here actually was done before we last talked, when I forgot that I had a base sketch done beforehand.
For sure. As much as I'm excited to see this, and was excited to watch it get made, I feel like it's still a little too new to really gauge how well of an experiment it is, how good the experiment is going. You know what I mean? Like I said last time around, I'll be really excited to see how page 10 of it looks compared to page 2. Anytime you start something new, it usually takes doing it maybe even 5 or 6 or 7 times before it really, you start to get it down.
Yeah, for sure.
But I wanted to know, how did it feel speed-wise this time around?
So, it actually felt a lot faster. Right now, having done the base sketch ahead of time, it actually ended up hindering me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because once we added words to it, a couple of the panels didn't work to what we wanted.
Sure.
Which was something we even discussed last time, that we have to start planning for that appropriately.
Yeah.
But once we added the words and I shifted the sketch after this stage, I ended up finding that it was a lot faster for me.
Were there panels in particular that we did a better job of that new method of word bubbles on?
I actually really like what we ended up doing for the last panel.
Okay.
So we'll even get to that point of it, and I'll even point it out then. But,
Sure.
what ended up happening was when I scheduled the desk to the actual little corners of it,
Yeah.
I ended up leaving the space for word bubbles above it. But then whenever we actually added the word bubbles, it made more sense for the pace of it to move a word bubble down further.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah, so I shifted the desk up. And it ended up being a lot faster and easier once I had the bases here.
I wondered actually when I did see that, because I did notice that, and I noticed that you used the desk to create more negative space for the word bubble to fit in. I actually really liked how it came out.
Yeah.
Did you find that using the modeler for that was more helpful and contributive to that?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
It actually ended up making it possible for me to even see that space as something that I could utilize.
That's real. I immediately recognized when I saw that you did that, the change that you made to that. I was like, oh, I wonder if that helped, because it did look like it helped.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm really glad to know that.
Yeah, I actually was really happy with that, because I just wouldn't have thought of it before, because it's usually not something that I think of for that kind of space.
Right.
Usually my brain goes to all the space above that, airspace.
Right.
I think in airspace more.
Because how would you... Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That if you're thinking about the negative space in your own life, like where blank spaces in your own life and your own physicality, you think of the places that you can move around in.
Yeah.
So you think about, airspace, you're right.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting, but once you physically have a... It's not quite tangible because it's still digital, but a somewhat tangible thing that you can move around and see, once this is moved up here, this doesn't need to be completely detailed. This is an example of negative space in an illustration.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool.
It's a lot of things that I really just wouldn't have thought of before. And actually a perfect example too is this fourth panel here.
Sure.
That is working on right now.
Yeah.
I shifted the photo entirely. I took one photo, and then I took another photo, and then I went to this one, and ended up liking the direction that the desk faced.
So this is one that you had multiple things.
Yeah.
I think you said that last time too, that there were multiple ones that you were going to choose between.
Yeah.
Depending on what fit best.
Yeah, and that was one of them that I ended up using one that was kind of pulled out, and you can see it's a lot of dark space, because I was trying to figure out the appropriate way to set the desk so that way I could actually see both of them.
Right.
But then have the desk not be so warped in the foreground.
Right.
And I actually ended up really liking that angle.
Is this the one, this is the one before you changed it, right?
Yes.
For this last panel here?
Yeah, so you can see on the last panel, I did this before we put on the word bubbles.
Right.
And
This
ended
is the
up
whole
having...
original base sketch pre-word bubbles, yeah.
Yeah, I ended up having all this space that's kind of wasted down below.
Right. And up above, too.
Yeah, up above. So you can see already I shifted them upward because I've already kind of adjusted for that. And as I go through and do the sketches, you can actually see now I don't even have to go through and base sketch the actual background.
Right. I did ask you this time to try out not sketching the background.
Yeah.
To ink directly from your base sketch and from the model.
Yeah.
To see if that was time-saving.
Yeah. So I had been kind of intending to and like just still unsure.
Sure.
But the second I got into it, it made so much more sense to be able to use that space.
How did it feel?
It felt actually really good because by the end of it, it might as well be a sketch. It's not like the actual, it's not like an actual basis that I have to lay down and plan for because it already exists there now.
Right.
So it ended up just basically being a sketch that I was using.
That's cool.
And I could still turn around and sketch this room. I could do it without the photos, but it is faster to have the photos now.
And there's some necessity too because the model is imperfect.
Yeah.
And so you'll have to do some sketching
Yeah.
when the model doesn't completely align with what you need from the background. Like the bookcase we were saying is an imperfect model. And if you were going to put obviously the books, you have to add to the shelves. And if you were going to later put more items on bookshelves or if a prop was brought into the scene that needed to be added to the background, you would have to always sketch that in too.
Yeah.
But in terms of, there's no need for you to now sketch the wall lines on top of what you have, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's still like a little bit of that. With this room in particular, the corner of the room bends inward.
Yes.
But the model itself, we just did a square box. So
right.
I have to draw in that corner of the room still bending inward.
I did see that there are features in the program I'm using to create the modeler. It's Sweet Home 3D.
Yeah.
I did see there's a you can adjust the height of the walls pretty easily. And I did see that there's a feature in the wall adjustment that states the height of the wall on one side versus the height of the wall on the other side.
Yeah.
So I would assume that you would then use that to you can make like an arched, like a ramping kind of wall like that.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. There's not a lot of features for, at least that I've found yet, for adjusting the ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
But I think also Sweet Home has its own limitations in terms of like, I think the model it's intending to export is mostly intended to be used within the program itself.
Yeah.
So to then export it to Blender and then to Clip, I think has some challenges that aren't necessarily like, I think it would probably be more beneficial to maybe learn some Blender.
Yeah.
And to make them myself at that point instead of relying on, you know, a program that's maybe easier to use but has its own limitations for that. Whereas maybe I've just been a little reluctant to learn Blender and I could probably stand to actually get some elbow grease in on that. And figure that out. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. I actually find that it's still very easy for me to work with it.
Sure.
I do understand spatially where like that corner of the room goes.
Right.
So just having the basic 3D model still helps.
Does help, yeah.
Even if it doesn't need to have the little changes, I can add those in.
Fair enough.
Just from the experience of having done it before.
Right.
It's a little bit easier.
Without the model.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. I keep calling it photos, but it is a model.
But
Screenshots of it.
It's kind of a photo, too, in a weird way. I think we were talking with Galen, too, about that you can have... there's services now where you can have the model printed for you too, and I know there was a time that we were really interested in building models of rooms, especially for that kind of like, if not necessarily to take photos of, to just be able to spatially kind of like turn it around and see it. And so having the model existent now does kind of scratch that itch a little bit digitally, but I wouldn't mind actually feeding a model maybe through a 3D printer or we don't have one, but I'm sure, I think we'd have to kind of look into what services are even available now in 2020 especially, I'm sure. Like I've known libraries that had that feature that you could go, pay a small amount to be able to use their modeler and to print a small model. I'll have to see... I know library services are kind of limited right now, so I'll have to see if what's even available. But when it comes to rooms that we use a lot, I would love to have a little model of them.
Yeah, that would be actually really fun.
I don't know if I'll do it for Toy, because we are very close to the end of Toy.
Yeah.
And there are projects that I'd like to start that we'll use, like, let's say if we were 3 or 4 chapters earlier in Toy, I might say, like, oh, I'd love, like, a model of their flat.
Yeah, that would be cute.
Because, we spend a lot of time there. That's something that I think would be super helpful when I go to thumbnail, to be able to, twist and turn it on my desk and think about it from different angles, and maybe not have to render the model in a program and slow up my computer in order to just think about it.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm thumbnailing on paper.
Yeah.
That might be interesting to have, but we're going to their flat for a limited amount of time now, so it's I don't know if that's something I'd invest in at this point.
Yeah, it wouldn't be worthwhile. It would just be more so, and honestly, even if we were using it as a reference, it would be more so just fun to have.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, well, when you buy, like, a figurine of something, it's like, it's not necessary for you to have it, but
sure.
it can be fun.
But it's fun. It's cute. It's nice to have, but there's definitely scenes in future projects that I think we'll visit as often as we have visited their flat.
Yeah.
That would be, I could justify it to myself a little bit more, like, oh, we have the whole comic project ahead of it to be able to use this for, and it is kind of conducive to more thoughtful thumbnails and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, the fun thing about that is, like, then you'd have it, like, tangibly in front of you, but I feel like if it was digital, you could add to it. So it's like...
That's true. Once it's printed.
Yeah, once it's printed,
unless you're going to print, like, 3 or 4.
So this is it after it was hit by a truck. I don't know. Sometimes you have a flat hit by a truck.
Sure, yeah. There's after the fire. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
There's no fire. Don't worry.
But that would be fun.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been thinking about that, and that's kind of interesting to think about. But I'll definitely have to. I think last time we were talking about ways that I can improve the models in the future.
Yeah.
And I think that now, having played with them a little bit more, and now seeing what use you can get out of them.
Yeah.
I think more and more I'm starting to realize it comes down to I have to start making assets that can go into, because Sweet Home is very, very good at making the room itself and also being able to draw up the room itself with a very the UI looks like the 2D floor plan with the measurements for feet feet and inches, and then from there it draws up your 3D model on top of it. Definitely the best way to use it is to create the room itself, to put that in Blender, and then to kind of make your prop assets from there. And I think because they have some built-in like doors and chairs and desks and stuff like that in the program itself, and some of them are very good models. But I think definitely when it comes to making your own backgrounds and stuff and making them what you want them to look like, while at the same time being well optimized, not having too many vertices and not having too many faces and stuff like that, then I think that it really is time for me to start making the assets myself. Because one, then they're 100% customizable. They're exactly what I want them to look like. I don't have to like be at the whim of finding something that looks kind of similar to what I was hoping for.
Getting close enough.
Yeah, exactly. And then two, then I can think really critically about, since you, Susanna, when you put the background into Clip, I know how much of the background you actually end up using and how much you really don't need. Like, you could probably use a very low poly render of a chair that is the right size. More than you could use a high poly render of a chair that is not the right size. Or has features on it that aren't necessary to you.
That would definitely have even been useful in this scene with Eli's chair. Because you can even see it sometimes when... like right there in that panel, you see how short it is. Right. But his actual chair is a lot taller.
And I kind of knew when I put that model in that this model's not going to be super helpful to you. But for me, I included it then because it was like, well, then at least you can see the distance between the desk and the wall. And how much space is reasonable to need a chair to exist in between those two spaces. I kind of thought about taking the chair back out once. But I thought it would be a good facet of the experiment.
It's definitely actually still good because I can look at it and tell where the chair should be. And then I can actually just draw it in based on that.
Right.
And it has been very useful for me to be able to draw down from it to see where that wall is.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's fair.
I actually don't mind it.
But it definitely occurs to me that a very low poly rendering of a chair that has the correct back height would be more useful to you.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Than this really gorgeous, really well rendered but like otherwise useless, prefab chair model.
It makes sense. We could always like go through and actually design some of our own and just make it, like you said, very low poly, make it very small file itself, and I'll just be able to draw in the details on it. Because, I mean, that's what it's for. That's what it's for,
exactly, yeah. And I think it'll look more organic and closer to, having sketched it completely, too, at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's my next step. And I've done a little more work building the models in the meantime, but I definitely think that that's my next step going forward, is just to start constructing some really low poly prop assets to go into these backgrounds. I for another project I made one of the first scenes that we see in another project. I've made like a full background for it. It's like a break room kind of situation, and I used a prefab like kitchenette kind of thing, and upon saving it into Blender, optimizing it, I learned a little bit more about optimization, being able to decimate models to bring them down to a lower number of vertices and stuff like that.
Yeah. And those are the faces of the model itself.
Vertices, I think, so I'm very new to this, so forgive me if I misspeak, but I want to say vertices are if you build a model in 3D space, it's basically like a 3-dimensional connect the dots. Okay. Right. So when you build, let's say like a box, let's say like a cardboard box. Building the vertices is like this corner of the box connects to this corner of the box, connects to this corner of the box, connects to this corner of the box. And then Blender knows to draw lines between those points. So I believe the vertices are the points, and then its edges are the lines between the points, and then its faces as it then connects edges into so when you have like a cube, you have 1 2 3 4 for the top, 1 2 3 4 for the bottom, and then math. Anyway, it connects.
It does all sound like just math being used. Actually,
so it builds out from the points to lines to faces, right? And so when you're planning for a really well optimized 3D model, the lower number of points that you're drawing lines between, the less edges, and then therefore the less faces, right? So now, for instance, in this model that I just built, there is, let's say like there's a refrigerator, like this break room has a refrigerator, right? You personally, Susanna, only need from the model basically a rectangular shaped cube. Maybe with some differential to show the height of where the freezer connects to the fridge door. So that you just get like a consistent line every time. You're not like guessing, right? But really all you truly need, you personally, because you're kind of experienced with doing the backgrounds, you don't really need it to be any higher poly than that. You just need a cube that will consistently show up every time as the same size, so that when you go to draw your background, it looks the same every time, right? Reliably, that's all you functionally need, right? But
a box with some smaller boxes attached to it.
A box with like a line that goes, and maybe like another rectangle just on its face that shows where the door handle is. So that every time you draw this scene, it's the same proportions to itself, right? That's all you need. So all I would need to do at that point is just make a cube, and then maybe draw an edge that shows, the whatever.
The height of everything,
So that's all you need. Now, I have not gone so far as to do that yet. So all I've done so far is to take the prefab fridge. You know what I mean, and throw it in. Now the prefab fridge, as part of this program, was originally intended, I have to assume this program was intended for like home decoration designers, or maybe even like, maybe it's like an architecture tool.
That's the impression I got from it too.
Right, like sometimes like if you see like reality shows like what is it, like the Property Brothers and stuff like that, they have I seen in the more recent episodes, they have like It's been a while since I've seen it, so recent is subjective
it's like
here.
7 years ago.
Yeah, subjective. The design, the brother who does the design work will use tools like this to show them, like, this is conceptually what I'm intending to do with this space when you go to, like, flip this property or whatever.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what it looks like to me. It's just like a very basic program meant to just show you what something kind of would look like.
Right. Like, you know your space that you live in your home right now, or you just bought a home or something, and you know that your kitchen is, I don't know, like 300 square feet or something like that. Here's what you demonstrably can even do with your space, right?
Okay.
Like, if so, and then there's a prefab in there, and it's like a fridge, and it's like, okay, so here's a basic rendering of what a fridge looks like. You can adjust the height and the width and everything on it. This doesn't have to look like what your fridge is going to look like, but if you're interested in remodeling your kitchen and you just want to see, can I even fit a fridge that is 3 feet wide?
Yeah.
If I'm just making numbers up, I don't even know if that's realistic. A fridge that's 3 feet wide into this corner, then go for it. You know, your remodel can proceed, right? Maybe as just like a basic tool before then you hire contractors or whatever.
It's basically what I do every time that we try to like set up the office or set up one of the rooms. Is I'll draw out a map of the room with the sizes, and then I can tell you like, well, this desk will fit over here or not.
Yeah, exactly. You take like a measuring tape to your IKEA desk, and you just move it around, and
yeah, it just makes it a little bit faster and easier to see than like me having to sit there and write down the numbers.
Or you unpack your whole computer and then you move your desk, and it's like, oh no, I didn't measure, and the desk doesn't fit here or whatever. So I believe that's what this program is intended for originally, right? So the prefab assets that they have loaded into it they have lots of vertices. They have lots of those points, right? Yeah. Because they're meant to be used in program. They don't really care about you putting it in Blender and then putting it in Clip Studio. They haven't like thought through those steps. Yeah. So the fridge, the prefab fridge in this case, this really specific example, has like kind of a curved top. Yeah. To kind of show realistically, like, look at this as a very attractive looking fridge.
It's a very nice fridge.
Yeah, it's a very nice fridge. It's got like a kind of curved top. So to create a curve instead of a cube, you have to imagine like the points along that line. There's more of them in order to create like a sloping curve. Yeah. That looks aesthetically pleasing. Yeah. And then therefore, when you load that into Blender and then into Clip, that creates a lot more faces, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So once it's gone through Blender and then into Clip, Clip kind of struggles a little bit with the faces. Do you know what I mean?
I've noticed.
Yeah. So especially when something has maybe more faces than it needs. Yeah. The light source in Clip is trying to read this very odd shape. Yeah. That's very multifaceted. Almost like, think like a diamond has like tons of facets in it. Yeah. And the light is maybe a little too simplistic. The light source in Clip is more simple than it is in the previous programs. Yeah. So
or at least like it's reading the file more simply because it's a completely different file than what it was actually exported
Exactly. It's chunked through a couple steps that have maybe oversimplified it down. Yeah. So when you port it in, and you can like jiggle the light source around a little bit, trying to get it to be more visible. But if you don't do that, it looks like a really high contrast picture of a diamond. Yeah. With like the multi-facets, the multiple faces. Some of them are in extreme shadow.
Yeah, but you can actually see there in that fourth panel.
Yeah. Some are in extreme shadow, and some are in extreme light. And then it's like, what is happening here? So I'm pretty sure there is a way to fix the light sources in Blender, which I need to do some research on too. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure there's a way to fix it in Clip so that it doesn't even bother trying to read. Like, every object is equally lit up perfectly. I know there's a way to do that. But short of that, it would be in my best interest to also start making my own assets that are literally boiled down to just the elements that you need. Because you don't need the aesthetic curve. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're going to put that on yourself with like an ink brush.
Yeah, things like that could be so easily added.
Yeah, that's going to take you literally like fractions of seconds to just go like bloop and to put a curve on it. Yeah. All you need is like the really bare bones, like the cube itself that you can get the perspective from. Exactly. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. See, I was told that I was never supposed to have to use math again in my life. my teachers definitely never told me that I would need this for the rest of my life.
I am okay.
Actually, I wish they were lying. I do need it all the time. I hate it.
I literally have only heard teachers say, "You're gonna need this forever. Pay attention."
Yeah. They sure did say that. But I like in my head I kept saying, "No, I'm not gonna need it."
Right.
And now I need it.
So
okay.
I like that you remembered yourself saying that to yourself. And then accuse your teachers of lying to you.
I was lying.
Yeah, you were lying to yourself.
I was lying to everyone. They told me.
Yeah.
And then I said no. And then I directly actually need it.
The comeuppance.
So I apologize to my previous teachers that I did not do so well in your class and kept saying it's not going to matter.
I didn't know I wanted to make a comic.
Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, I was okay with vertices and all these things.
Sure.
It was bad when it came to the numbers, which is still true, because I was bad when I gave you the numbers.
Oh,
but
yeah, that was
when
tough.
I could guess it, I did okay. But just okay, just not exact.
I love that. By the way, I noticed here on the page, this is actually something that has not happened on screen recently when we've been recording these and uploading them, but something that's happened quite a lot in the past is we'll get to this point in the page, and then I'll say, as you're finishing inking panel 4, can you actually redo panel 5 entirely from scratch?
Yeah, so I had to write a note to myself to make sure I remembered to do that before I just went in a feverish dream and started actually working on it.
So I really like that. We came to this point where as we were working, I got to the point where I was thinking, like, oh, the visual of that panel doesn't make sense to me, actually, in my mind. So,
originally we had Eli's reaction.
Yeah. This is one of those things that's, like, it's not a huge moment. I'm not going to spend so much time on it that we blow it out of proportion and make it a huge moment.
Yeah.
But it's the first time that Liam has told his dad off.
Yeah.
For criticizing him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's kind of like passively just been like
just accepting his dad doing this over and over.
Yeah, for sure. And it's something that's bothered him. I think it visibly bothers him.
Every time.
Yeah, but he's starting to try to get better at saying when he has a problem, right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of Liam's problem throughout the comic is that he's not happy when people try to exert control over him.
Yeah.
He doesn't like having his autonomy taken away from him.
Yeah.
But when it happens to him, he doesn't say anything.
Yeah, he just allows it to be said and then just frowns and goes against it.
Right. And maybe lies or sneaks in order to go against it, but doesn't say anything and doesn't speak up for himself. And then because he doesn't say anything, he establishes no boundaries.
Yes.
And it's not that he allows people to erode his boundaries, but that because he never establishes any, then the next time he comes up against someone who's maybe stepping on his boundaries, he's not said anything the previous time, so he again doesn't say it again, and he doesn't say it again. So
he allows it to keep happening by not exerting his own will on that.
Exactly, yeah. So this is kind of especially after a day where he's had multiple people comment on it, you know what I mean? Oh, your hair looks good, when it's the way you didn't want it to be. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like this is a moment for him to kind of step up and say something for once. You know what I mean?
It wasn't what he wanted.
Yeah, please don't coach me on how to keep my body. Can I just exist in my body on my own without you telling me what it should look like?
Which good for him.
Yeah.
Honestly, we could all stand up for that a little bit more.
Yeah, I know, I definitely could.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to my hair.
Yeah.
And what people tell me how to keep my hair. So, I liked this moment. And then as we were working on this page, not that I wanted to spend a ton of time fixating on the moment or having it be like this huge, like, you know what, Dad? I didn't want to do that, but like, it didn't.
He doesn't feel that strongly about it.
Yeah, but it didn't make sense to me that the first time he stands up for himself, he would be off panel.
Yeah, that you would focus on Eli saying it instead.
So I was like, Susanna, in the middle of the page, actually, can you just delete? Can you? redo.
Yeah, instead of what we have there, can you just change it?
Yeah, can you just actually go ahead and change it?
Which, it makes sense, because, like, Eli's reaction is less important. Eli's just going to be, like, dismissive.
Yeah.
And not really, like, appreciate the fact that his son is standing up for him.
Sure.
It's like, it's no point that Eli cares about.
Right.
And that's actually what's part of the problem.
Right.
Eli doesn't care, but Liam does care. But as long as Liam doesn't stand up for himself, Eli's just going to continue not caring and also stepping on his boundaries.
Exactly, yeah. I really, because I asked you to do this while I was working, I didn't see it for a while. And so I think I didn't see it until it was in the ink stage, so I actually didn't get to see the sketch until literally just this second. And I really
just being kind of annoyed.
I really like the sketch. I think because I didn't thumbnail it, so I didn't, like, make any, like, written, bless you, baby.
Bless you, Squally.
I didn't make any, like, I didn't sketch it myself. I didn't draw it myself. I think what I said out loud was, like, can you just make him, like, he's kind of smiling, but maybe, like, also there's, like, a secret grimace coming through his smile.
Please don't.
Please don't do that. He's not trying to step on the social niceties that he's attempting to establish with his father in this moment, but maybe, like, he's a little kind of shitty about it.
A little mad.
And I actually really like, I think this is about when I looked over and I was like, oh, I like that. I like what he did.
For sure. I actually, I feel like this is the exact same face that I made every time that I was told how to do my hair, too.
Thanks, yeah, will do.
Yeah. Can you not tell me that? Because I actually like it the way I just did it.
I really like how it came out. So I really appreciated the deviant.
I'm glad.
Yeah, for sure. The course correct. There were actually a couple things on this page that that we had to tweak in that way.
Yeah.
So this was a big one because it was like a full sketch that was discarded in order to make a new sketch. And I put all of our, as of now, I put all of our deleted sketches and pieces of the page onto the Patreon.
Okay. Yeah.
Because there's been quite a few throughout the course of the comic. Like, me seeing the page sketched, being like, that's actually slightly off from what I meant. And I see that you did exactly what I asked, but it was in my head that I hadn't figured out exactly what I wanted yet. So I was
different there.
Yeah. So I would say, like, per chapter, there's maybe like 3 or 4 deleted sketches that just never ended up getting used.
Yeah.
So I throw them all on the Patreon. So I'll do that with this one too.
Yeah, that's right. What chapter are you even up to right now?
I'm up to chapter 10. Chapter 10 goes up this Friday.
Yeah, that's okay. So there's going to be a lot in there past, I think even past 10 we started having a lot of those.
Yeah.
Because we did change up a little bit how we were base sketching
Yes.
around then.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to end up seeing a lot of different sketches for each panel.
It was a joy to find them.
Yeah.
A lot of them I forgot about.
Some of them I forgot about too.
Yeah, for sure. So it was really that project, going through and saving the sketch from every page, took me a good, like, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I would say of all day constant work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I'll do where it's like, when we joined with Hiveworks, I adjusted the page size for every page.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And so very occasionally there are projects like this where it's like, I have to do such and such to every page. Like, go and resave every page at a slightly higher size. Ping.
Just changing even for, I forget what chapter we did that, we had to change the copyrights on the bottom.
Yeah, I think we changed the font on the copyrights of every page. And so sometimes I'll do a project like this where save the sketch of every page, save the inks of every page, resize every page. And I always, like, start out so cocksure. Like, I'm all set. This is going to be a breeze. I can probably
so fast.
I can get this done in like a day or two. And then, like, day 5, I'm like, oh,
there's a lot of stuff here.
Because, like, I breeze through the first 4 chapters because they're so short.
Yeah,
because they're 25 pages each.
Yeah.
And then I get to chapter 5, and I'm like, oh no,
it's twice as much.
And it's only more from here. So it took me a while. So I've been uploading a chapter every week of the sketches, but truly, even though it was such a long project to get through, so delightful.
Yeah.
And talk about time capsules.
Yeah.
Truly. Definitely. Because I can remember so vividly why I didn't like the sketch in the moment, where it's like, I really like the sketch, but that's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
And then specifically, like, I can remember, like, the decision that went into every single one. Like, oh, this one's not correct because the character that I featured in the thumbnail when I asked you to draw this shouldn't have been the main focus.
Yeah, because the words kind of adjusted for the actual page.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or by the time I thought about the words and I was like, you know, I did the words and then I was like, oh, I would actually tweak the dialogue very slightly by the end of the page. And if I'm tweaking the dialogue very slightly, actually, can you adjust his facial expression very slightly?
The mood changes. Or sometimes whoever's important to prioritize in the panel, like right here, it ends up making a difference to what I have to put in the art.
So it was really cool. It was really cool to see them.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to share that too. And I'm happy to see them again. Kind of unearth them a little bit. It was kind of cool.
Archaeology of your own comic.
Yeah, for sure. It was really cool. So there were a couple other tweaks on this page. I lost that it was raining.
Yeah.
In this scene.
Yeah, that was actually a funny thing for you to very suddenly like say out loud, like, oh, it was raining.
It was raining.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
It sure was. That's why his hair is curly.
Yeah. I lost that it was raining in this, so I had to go back and fix the previous page to make sure it was raining. Because he's sitting in front of a window.
It's like a huge window right there.
And I lost that it was raining. And yeah, that sucked. So I had to fix that. And then I think here, I asked you to adjust since now the previous panel shifted and Liam here was newly shown after not having been in the previous panel before.
Yeah.
His facial expression from the sketch needed to change again to reflect he's still a little pissed from the previous expression. So I think I was like, can you just fix his tweak his make him a little more scrunched up in the forehead than he is currently.
It just makes more sense to actually have it follow the same expression.
Yeah, the preservation of flow between two panels needed to be slightly tweaked.
Yeah. I actually, even as I'm watching this, I remember I don't like this first draft of the hair and I redraw it.
Oh, it's so cute.
It stopped making sense to me halfway up the top and then I had to redraw it at one point.
Fair enough.
But, I actually ended up liking what ended up coming out of it.
I do too. Yeah. I actually, by the end of this page, I really liked this page. It was fun.
Yeah.
Here's also the scrunching.
Yeah.
That I asked for too. Yeah.
Yeah, I end up doing that a lot. I'll have a lot of inks that get kind of abandoned halfway through because I'll start inking something and as I get to a part of it, I'm like, this doesn't look right to me.
Sure.
And most of drawing for me is just like what looks right or feels right.
Right.
So I just end up redrawing it.
That's why I really like recording it too.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff that like doesn't get saved. Like, in terms of the sketches that got abandoned, usually you save those on there's like a to be deleted folder in the bottom of every single page that we make. That we never delete. I don't know why we call it the to be deleted folder.
I call it TBD, to be deleted, because right before I save the file and flatten it and everything, I delete that and then I flatten it. So that way, all the little assets in there don't bother the rest of it, because when you have perspective lines, the perspective lines will stay on there and then I have to turn those off before I can save it down, which it just makes sense to have a folder TBD.
Sure.
So I just delete it right before I...
So it's temporarily deleted, but it's not deleted from the end file.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's a note for me, delete this before you size it down to save for web.
For the web. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
So when you go through to save the files for print, that's also the folder you should delete before you go to size it down for print.
Right. It's not deleted ever permanently.
Yeah.
But in there usually is, if you do a sketch that I say, Susanna, can you redo that? Actually, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. It's all the assets that aren't important for the final page, but are the pieces for its composition.
Sure.
If you open it up, sometimes I'll save some inks if I got really far on it. Like, I'll save it just that way you have it for posterity.
Sure. Yeah.
Or that's where the sketches are. Multiple sketches sometimes, especially if I redo a sketch.
Right.
That Eli sketch is still in the to be deleted folder.
Right.
Listed as sketch TBD or something like that.
Sure, yeah.
It wasn't used. Sometimes it's panel 4 to delete.
Sure.
So usually I'll leave them in there as pieces so that way I'll have it to refer back to later. And honestly, like, it's useful now as you go in to have sketches to save.
Right.
But before it was just like, I don't like deleting things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I do know. Why would you?
Yeah.
Even if you're not going to use it for anything, there's no point. But that having been said, that's why I like recording.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of inks that you don't save.
Yeah.
Where you'll just start over on a portion of the inks and you don't save them.
Yeah, that's usually pieces. Like Liam's hair, I just deleted it.
Yep.
I didn't
it's
like
fine.
it, so just delete it.
It's fine. It comes out well for it. Do you know what I mean? It's not that big a deal. But But yeah, I just like watching the process back in
Yeah.
that way, and I like seeing what doesn't end up getting used.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I actually, I really like how this page came out. I'm really happy with it overall. It's, again, from a writing perspective, this being just like a silly transitional page, these are my favorite to make.
Yeah.
If I can sit back at the end and be like, was this funny to me at least, and get like a little bit of a giggle from myself when I read it back, these always end up being my absolute favorite pages.
Yeah.
I especially really like these moments between Liam and Eli where it's just not going well for them. It's just so awkward.
They don't get along that well.
They really don't get along.
They try, though.
And they're both trying so hard, and it just does not work ever. And we're about to... I've talked about how excited I am about the scene that's upcoming.
This is something that you've been wanting to make for a while.
I've been wanting this so badly for so long. So
I'm excited to do it, too.
Yeah.
A lot of the art coming up is things that I've been looking forward to.
Yeah.
Getting to draw.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled out of my mind. But it's so... This scene coming up is so truly like... It's like one of the most climactic versions of this. These two people are trying so hard to get along with each other, and they are just so at odds. And it is really not working, no matter how hard they actually try.
Yeah.
And it's so much... It makes me laugh. I guess it is sad, kind of.
It's Schadenfreude?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I guess
Or
so.
just like, it's fun to write, it's fun to make it because it is so sad. But it's just like, that's just the reality of some relationship dynamics with people in your life.
It's
just
true.
Like, oh, it's so bad, but it just, you're trying.
This one hits really close to home for me.
Yeah.
This relationship in general hits really close to home for me.
Yeah.
This is really, there's a lot of like, and it's not so much true anymore, but this is a lot of how I felt about my own dad when I was younger.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And Eli is not my dad. Not by a long shot, but but there's a lot of that, like, why is it so impossible? Despite the fact that both of your intentions are good, why is it so impossible to get along with this person who is such your complete opposite?
Yeah.
That it's just not ever going to work.
Just sometimes it's like that.
So to live it was awful. But to write it is so much fun.
Yeah, now it's just cringe that you get to put into your story.
That's exactly it. It's just cringe fodder.
No.
It really, truly is. I really like it.
I mean, honestly, some of my favorite cringe comedy usually comes from someone's personal experience or something that they witnessed.
Sure.
Because it's just like, I keep going back to The Office.
Truly, okay. I'm probably gonna...
It's like the pinnacle of cringe comedy.
I cannot shut up about The Office. It's my favorite. I'm literally wearing an Office shirt.
I was just about to
As
say.
we're sitting here.
That's probably why I keep coming up with it. It's just like, I'll have like something subtly in front of me and I'm like, yep,
Subtly.
just like that.
Go ahead, yeah.
But I just think to like, there's that one scene where they go to the dinner party. It's like
the dinner party,
the most cringe episode.
Yep.
Well, no, there's some other ones, but
that's pretty far up there.
It's a very tough episode in
Sure.
a very good way.
Uh-huh.
There's a whole scene where they point out that Michael sleeps on it's like the ottoman at the foot of the bed.
Yes.
And it's like, it's so awkward, but then you find out from the writers, it's because they knew someone once whose spouse made them sleep on that. And it's just like, I would have never thought of that in a million years.
Unless you knew it happened to someone.
Happened.
Yeah.
And it's such perfectly like timed cringe where in that moment you recognize that it's extremely awful that is happening to him.
See, he fits perfectly.
Yeah. And you would never think like someone would actually do that in real life.
Yeah.
But then you find out it actually happens and it's like, obviously that's the only way you came up with it.
Bravo.
Wow.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things. And one of my other favorite things is telling the people when I upcycle like a moment of cringe from my past into the comic to go back and be like, hey, by the way, do you remember when you said that to me?
Yeah.
I put it in my comic and they're like, no.
Oh, no.
No, you didn't. You didn't. Tell me you didn't. And it's like, I did.
Yeah, there's so many little moments like that in the comic, and we'll have to like actually go through and try to think of them. And
one I can think of off the top of my head is the page where Eli says to Liam says, "Stop patronizing me."
Yeah.
And he says, "Stop patronizing! I am your patron." I told my dad, I was like, "Do you remember when you said that to me once?" I put it in my comic, and he was like, no,
Oh, no.
you didn't. Oh, I was an ass.
It's just so good. We couldn't resist. And I still find it so funny.
I
Awful,
love
but funny.
I love looking back on those pages. They're my absolute favorites, and I love rubbing them in my family's faces or like my friends' faces later.
I agree. You do it kindly because like
It comes from a place
funny.
of love. It
Yeah.
comes from a place of love, but
It's just like, especially in retrospect, sometimes things are a lot funnier than they actually are in that
so
moment.
true. So true.
So
All
that's
right,
perfect.
we're coming up on the end here. This one was a little shorter because I played a little bit with
Yeah.
the speed playback for the
Yeah.
clips. So I'll try that out for a little bit too and see how we like it. But
Yeah, see how you like it, see what
yeah.
it looks like.
for sure. But if you got to the end of this, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Super appreciate you. And we'll see you next time.
See you soon.